All right, good evening, Littleton. This is the September 15th, hard to believe, meeting of the Charter Committee. Tonight, we're going to have a discussion with Park and Rec and the Assessor's Office on the agenda. And then we have our own internal work in terms of going through our documentation, see where we are, some discussion based on some of the other people that have come in and talked to us, make some decisions on that, and talk about our public forum coming up, and minutes. So another exciting night at the Charter Committee. All right, so if you guys would like to start, introduce yourselves. We have Park and Rec here with us tonight, and again, we're talking about
Since we have a quorum.
things going on.
Oh,
We
yeah.
have to swear ourselves in.
I mean, I don't think we're gonna deliberate, so we probably don't need to call to order. So, good evening, Saul Marini. I am currently the chair of the Park and Rec Commission. I've been on the commission I think for 5 years.
Yeah.
And have been chair for about the past year and a half.
Me?
Welcome.
Hi, I'm Kate Jacobson. I am a Park and Rec Commissioner in my second term. I was just re-elected in May.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
happy to be here and be part of the discussion.
great.
You guys are the commission, you guys go first.
Norm Young, Park Commissioner, my first term.
Peter Church, I'm the vice chair, and it's my second term.
Yeah.
Alicia Day, Director of Parks and Recreation.
Okay, so, I mean, you know, what we're looking at here, we're looking at different things on town meeting, town government, how we're structured. When it comes down to you all, it's things like we talking about the things that people are interested in, we're talking about town manager, town administrator. That really is just a title, so people know it doesn't come with any statutory responsibilities or anything like that. That's really just a title. So that's one thing we're looking at. And then what responsibilities go with that. Other things are, we have elected boards, and some of them clearly should be elected. Some of them, well, if there's really never a real election, it's kind of one person votes and there's one person running and things like that. So should some of those things be appointed instead of elected? And then the other thing is when we have elected boards, and right now, like Park and Rec, you appoint and you hire basically the director. So should that stay that way, or should it really be the town manager? If we went to a town manager model, so they would be that person would be responsible for hiring basically all the direct people, obviously working with the boards and HR and everybody else they would have to do that. It's a discussion. What are the pluses and minuses of both? And obviously there are pluses and minuses to both. So we would like to hear from you all in terms of what your feelings are on that and what's working, what's not working, and any other suggestions you have for us going forward. That fair, guys?
Yep.
Gals?
Yep, sounds
Okay.
Can I just ask a clarification?
Sure, absolutely.
When you say town manager, is that different than town mayor or the same thing? Just for my own
It's really,
education.
that's not a mayor. Mayor is a whole nother, that's elected, that's a whole nother thing. So it's really and it's just a title. Like I said, there's a big thing in Massachusetts. Most towns have gone from like ours, have gone from a town administrator to town manager. But in reality, there's nothing magic about saying you're manager versus an administrator. It's all in the charter or whatever the town, whatever responsibilities the town gives that person, whether they're an administrator or a manager. So how much responsibility do they have versus a select board? How much of the day-to-day operations is the select board still doing versus just saying, this person's gonna run the day-to-day and the select board is more policy and overview? That's really kind of where you're going with this stuff. Does that help?
Okay, so there would still be a select board
Oh,
in
yes.
this model, just as
Absolutely.
you said, what their purview is
Right.
could change.
So the current select board, because we've gone through a lot of changes of town administrators in the last few years, as most of us know, have really taken a role of trying to get out of the day-to-day, right? You need one person running it so people that work in the town aren't getting direction from 5 different places and different things. So one person kind of running things on a day-to-day basis, the operational piece. They've kind of done that on a policy basis. So now you're just looking at, do you want to codify some of this stuff in a charter? And if somebody wants to, if I'm misspeaking or something, let me know.
There is the notion of a strong town manager.
Right.
and I thought that was a derogatory term when I first heard it. Where do you get off calling somebody a strong versus a weak town manager, right? And there is a
I don't think we ever call anybody a weak one, but yeah.
all right, I don't know. I don't know what. I think there is a obverse
Yeah,
of a
that's
strong
just
town manager
yes.
somewhere. Wherever a strong town manager is defined, we have a strong fire chief. We have a strong fire chief and police chief.
Right.
We do not have a strong town manager
Right now.
by definition.
Right, that's correct.
We are debating whether to move to a strong manager model.
Right.
Correct? Is that true?
Yes.
So, is that helpful at all? Select board still there?
I think one of the points, go ahead, I'm sorry.
But operationally, there is a move toward all operational matters being handled under the purview of the strong town manager, including hiring and firing and personnel matters and approval of payroll and all of those things. That would be under the purview of what I call a chief executive of the in private company parlance, a chief executive officer is how I see it. But so I just wanted to, while you were exploring the differences, I wanted to talk about that.
I think one of the points I want to make too is that in the past, we've had a form of government that was flat, where every board ran completely independent. Little by little, in the last, 20 years ago, when we did the Town Government Study Committee, we wanted to give the town administrator at that time more authority. Right now, we're looking at, just like I said, can we centralize some of the authority so we have a central person that people can go to and say, ask different questions instead of going in 10 different directions. So that's one of the things we're looking at. Do we have it in the future that in some manner your position would be appointed? How it would be appointed, that's something else. Would the town manager do it alone, or would the town manager do it with help from your board and maybe a member of the Board of Selectmen? There's all kinds of different ideas that can be used on that. But I think the idea, as far as making the town manager more strong than what it is now, is to try to see if we can centralize some of that authority in one spot.
And if we do move to that model, should there be any exceptions to that model? Possibly. There could very well be sound reasons for exceptions to that pure model.
Good point.
But some of it's just consistency too, obviously, to have things done the same way across town. Obviously, the story I always tell here, when I moved to Littleton in 1994, it was a one-stoplight town.
Yep.
So things have changed, and things are going to continue to change. We know what's going on in the middle of town. A lot of more change coming. So it's not like something's broken and we need to fix it. Kevin brought this point up last week. It's just, could things be better? Could things be more? Because right now, the other thing is, if you want to find out what our statutes are and how things are organized, you got to go back through town meeting votes. There's not one place you can go and find out. This is how we're structured. So there's some advantage if we do a charter, which is what this is about. Then at least, even if we don't change anything, at least you have a charter now that says this is where in one place where you specify this is how we're set up and what we're doing.
It may be a limited number of bylaws. Right now, we got bylaws and stuff.
Right.
And not real good clarity about structure and, So the charter would be a high-level governing policy, very high-level document defining the parameters of the governance structure in the town.
So anyway, so it's a good idea just to talk about these things, how things are set up. They've been this way for a while, so is it still working, or what can we do? So now it's your turn. After all that, one simple question.
Full of how this works. Questions. Does this impact town meeting? Yes or no? If yes, how so?
Well, it could. It would depend on what we put in the charter, because there are segments on there on town meeting, although we really didn't vote to change, I don't think. We didn't really have a
Right.
look to change anything big on that, right?
Yeah, I don't think it would change how we meet as the town meeting. It meant some of the boards may change from elected to appointed, and there might be some
Right.
changes within the structure of town,
Right.
but basically, it's gonna remain an open town meeting, I think.
Well, that was one of the questions
It was.
posed to
It
us,
was.
whether we should move to a representative form of government in this town. versus a town meeting form of government. I think I don't want to talk for others on this committee, that was dismissed fairly early on, the notion of a representative form of government here in Littleton, I think. And I think the Collins Center, who's been advising us every step of the way on this journey of ours, and will continue to, with external wisdom and what other towns are doing and so forth. I think representative town of government was, I think, not seen as a viable alternative by anyone, I don't think.
And maybe just to add to that, sorry, I came in late. I think one of the nice aspects of this process is that we have been made aware of what is and isn't even possible, and then sort of laying it out, weighing up the pros and cons, thinking, is representative town meeting appropriate for Littleton? What are other towns doing? Just sort of educating ourselves and discussing it so that we even know that that's an option. They also talked about hybrid voting, and we learned about what the state laws are around that. And so it's just been educational as well, I think, to understand what even are the possibilities, and then sort of discussing them, and at this point just saying, okay, well, we've got this, we've got that, what do we think might be the right way to, again, as Betsy was saying, sort of codify what is working, and maybe make suggestions. And again, it would only be in the form of a recommendation. It wouldn't be a final, we don't have any authority to make any actual decisions or changes ourselves.
So maybe I can start with, so in terms of one of the main activities we're responsible for, which is hiring the director, that has not come up because Alicia's been here longer than any of us. So that has not been an issue so far. Under our current board, we have assigned the chair and the vice chair to supervise Alicia rather than having the whole board do it, which means that at the sort of the turn of the year, we go through the goal setting and review. In this past year, we did have an MOA or U, I forget which, with the select board to have the town manager participate in that process, as well as provide some day-to-day support. So that's kind of our activity in that area. And then the staff will typically bring us issues that are up. We approve use of the parks, set policy for some of the programs, the beach activities, things like that.
One of the things that's
for you guys, we're looking at your elected board. We're looking at elected boards, whether they should be still elected or whether they should be appointed. Whether the director should be appointed by you or appointed by the town manager with the select board approval. Those are things that we're looking at that will impact you immediately, so think about that.
One of the things I'll say is that we bring both life experience and professional experience to our board. So I think while we don't see Alicia day to day, we, I think, should be weighing in on who is the next Park and Rec director, because we bring the wealth of experience and knowledge to the committee to pick someone.
And you're elected, correct?
And we're elected, yes.
That would still hold up under appointment, because the appointment, we'd be looking for the people who have expertise, who have experience in doing these things. What we find is that,
Go ahead.
as was said earlier, is that so many of the elected boards, there are people who don't want to stand for election. That's something that they don't even think about, but also have expertise, not on your board, but others. So bringing that to the forefront, it would still work under elected or appointed boards.
Yeah, if I didn't have to get the 50 signatures, that may be good too.
It saves you the 50 signatures thing. All you have to do is put one sheet of paper in.
No, but seriously, I mean, do you have a feeling on that one way or the?
For clarification.
Uh-huh.
So my understanding is that if you are elected, then they are allowed to vote on things. If they're appointed, then it would just be as, what's the word I'm looking for?
Advisory?
An advisory committee rather than actually voting to
No.
approve things.
The board is the board, whatever thing you would have. It's just how you're.
One distinction would be that elected can only be town residents.
I see.
Appointed could come from a larger pool.
Okay.
So that is a consideration, I believe, that in this day and age of more sophisticated towns and municipal operations, I think expanding the pool to include possibly people outside the town is worth considering. But
I will say to that fact, because I know sometimes that can be considered a positive of like doing the appointments, but you know, we've been really lucky that like our history shows that over the years we've had people that have been highly skilled individuals that have relevant experience. You know, we've got Pete from DCR. We've had previous recreation directors from other towns. We've had lawyers, we've had finance professionals, and longstanding members of youth sports organizations. And those are key stakeholders that we have had that, for us, I feel like it's been a really successful process to go through the election process, just because the individuals that we tend to find are very passionate about our parks and the programming that we do. And our facilities and events and things like that are all about community building. So to be able to represent the community as a whole, I feel like that process has been very successful for us.
The one thing I'd say about appointments that come from out of the town, the majority of us have had kids going through all of the Park and Rec programs. So we've experienced them from the start all the way to now.
Yeah.
I'm going to clarify. I think the boards are residents, but staff
Yeah.
could be from outside staff positions, as opposed to the oversight boards and any of the boards. The appointees have to be residents, I believe,
That's right.
versus the staff, where you can open it up.
So even if your board was appointed, we'd be all Littleton residents.
Yes.
It's the
Thank
director
you.
that could be living out of town.
I could. I just happen to live here. Yeah. I mean, I would
Can
say Tim lives out of town, Kelsey, Mel. Yeah, I think at this point in time, I'm the only person
Those were
that.
hired though, but if you were as an elected position,
Oh, I see what you're saying.
you have to be.
I got you.
You have to be a town resident.
Yep.
So just following up from what you said around the composition of the commission or the board, and if you are aware of these individuals that bring this experience, both professional and personal, and that they are visible and sort of known, is it an additional burden in a way to then say that those people have to go out and get elected versus identifying them and appointing them sort of, you know, if you some of the other people say, you know, it may be very challenging to find individuals to be appointed, for instance, but if this is a very vibrant sort of healthy pipeline, do you find, I guess, that anybody you would like to have had on the commission or the board isn't because they had to go through the rigmarole of getting elected? On the other hand, as you mentioned, representation and representing the community matters, so would appointments potentially take away from that? Do you feel like that might diminish the trust or diminish the kind of perception of the commission? So a couple of questions in there.
I think it'd be interesting to look at if there's been contested races.
We actually have that data.
Right? Because most of us,
Thank you.
like, I don't know, most of us right? It was probably the most burdensome thing was getting the 50 signatures. So,
Yeah, over the last approximately 10 years, 1.2 people have run for each seat available. So in
1.2, guys.
yeah, so it's
in
not,
5 of those years, one person ran for, in 4 of the years, 1.5 people, I don't know how that, but very low.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Which is one of the things the consultants tell us to look at when
Yeah.
you're considering whether it really is an election or is an appointment. You know, if it really is never a contested seat, then is it better just to make it a appointment? You can still say yes or no either way. It's just a discussion to have, which is why you're here, because we just want to hear, are there things that we didn't think about or that we should think about?
The one benefit I will say for being elected, even though it's a pain in the neck to get the 50 signatures, people talk to you, and then they ask you questions. They're like, tell us about what the board is.
Yeah.
And so maybe at the transfer
Yeah.
station, and you're chatting with them and talking about
Yeah.
what is Park and Rec. So there's a benefit there.
And I can see Park and Rec has a little bit different angle on that than some of the other ones, because it is so community-based, I think, too.
Yeah.
I guess, so then the question is still, though, for you all as a board, is it easier, or does it make it easier or harder to have elected positions versus having them be appointed? Because that's really kind of what it comes down to then. So,
I don't know, because we haven't been appointed,
Right.
obviously, but.
But you kind of have been.
Well, actually, that's true. And some of us actually have,
Actually, that's true, yeah.
some of us actually were appointed to fill open terms. So
Right.
my first term was the end of somebody who had left. And so I
Same
was
with
actually.
Norm's, same with mine.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
I'm looking at that guy right over there.
but I think
Switch aisles here.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I don't think there's a strong indication one way or the other. I think Pete's point about you do actually have to go out and
Right.
just see some people. There's
That's a good
some upside there.
Okay.
I think the question would be if you get to the point of appointment is, who's doing the searching, and does it become too isolated? Where now you still can, somebody who shows up can still run, and if they feel like they're not part of the inner circle.
Flip, yeah, I get it. Yeah.
And I will say, when I ran for my first term, the person I was running with or against, we were canvassing together. So we were basically in it together. And it was like, okay, if you win, great. I win, great.
Okay, so you were the 1.2, you were the part 1. It was yours, it was just.
Yeah. And there were 2 positions open and 3 people running.
Yeah. Okay, well, there you go.
I will say from a mechanics right now, we're going through a hiring process. And it may be more, and this is where Alicia could probably speak easier, but we're having to set up meetings where all of us are available, and you're dealing with candidates who are, might have other offers, you might have, and then sometimes, if we have to wait days to get a meeting, whereas if there was somebody that could go to and say, here's the offer, I'd like to extend this offer to the person, right? You're able to do something like that, at least I would envision it in that manager scenario.
Right.
Able to walk into the office and say, look, can we make this offer? As opposed to going through the mechanics of getting the commissioners together. And
That's
going
exactly the way it would work.
Yeah, so I think from a day-to-day perspective, that would be an advantage that I would see, is that having, that focal person in the office.
That came up as part of the discussion, some of the others, is just the hiring process and being able to move quickly and so
Yeah.
on. So I'm curious though, so Alicia, you're not leaving, are you? So who are you hiring? Because I thought you were just hiring her. or her position.
We're hiring a program coordinator and an office coordinator.
Okay, and so you all are involved in that on those as well then?
So we set up, anytime we have to go through a process of hiring a full-time staff, we set up a, why can't I think of the type?
Interview team?
Interview team, we'll call it that. There's
Okay.
no more formal
Yeah.
name for it that I'm spacing at the moment. So with that, we will normally include one of the park commissioners to be part of that process. And it's extremely important to have them be part of that process. You know, they have this outside knowledge that is extremely helpful to come in, not only from the aspect of, you know, in this case, Norm being, you know, on the sports boards for so long, but also the experience of having, like I said, their families go through our programming. So they do have an understanding of what our mission is and how to accomplish that, and want to make sure that the staff that we hire is able to do that as well.
So if you,
Do you go through, does HR help you with this?
So we actually did have Michelle involved with us this time. So we don't necessarily always do that, but I know she's been working on trying to solidify and make sure that the process is the same.
It's the
for
same
everybody.
all across the board.
100%.
That's one of the,
Yeah.
one of the other things we're looking to do.
Absolutely. So that's fantastic. We love that idea completely. But yeah, so she was involved at this time, but we have done it essentially the way that Anne had presented it previously, which is, you know, you get in all your applicants, you review them. There's a form that we go through that every person on that committee will go through and score that person. Then we sit down as a group and decide who we're going to bring in for interviews. So then we'll do a first round of interviews and then a second round of interviews, and we'll tally up all of our scores. We ask the same questions to every single person. So it's it has a very set procedure, and we follow that all the time. So I think it's a little off topic, but anyway.
No, it's not, and I think most of us envision that should be the same process for everybody.
Yeah,
I mean, and it should
absolutely.
continue to be the process regardless of what's put in this document. I mean, that should be how things work, right? The people who have knowledge and are involved and care should be
Yeah.
part of the process.
and I think one of the other things we discussed is that, you know, a charter wouldn't get into that level of granular detail anyway. I mean, one would refer to the HR policy, or, you know, these are often
Right.
policy level procedures like you're describing. But I think the thing that keeps on coming up again and again is what you mentioned, this decision-making authority, and trying to ensure that the balance there is such that it's as efficient and effective as possible, so that we don't spend 3 weeks going around in circles, but at the same time that there is exactly, you might lose a candidate, but that you retain that input. So by, as Kevin was saying, a strong TM does not mean, a strong town manager would not mean without input from other parties. It would just mean that potentially that operational efficiency is a little tighter, right, with the decision-making authority. But the policy might still say the interview panel must include a member of the commission, so on and so forth. So the two things not being kind of mutually exclusive.
And that would also include, say you were here and the board had to hire a new director.
Yeah.
We'd use this, the exact,
That's fine, yeah.
that same kind of process could be used where it could be a member of your committee, and then maybe could be a member of the Board of Selectmen, but it'd be some kind of process.
Right.
I guess I'm trying to ask, would your committee have any objections to doing that with the final appointment being made, after the discussion, being made by the town manager?
I think, from my personal opinion, I think we would want to have a substantial input in that, whether it's approval or something. But I think just participating in that process, from my perspective, would not be sufficient. And I think that the town manager has a lot of responsibilities and a lot of other things that keep them busy, and I don't know that this area is generally their area of either focus or expertise. And so,
Alicia,
I would.
do you attend when the town administrator holds his weekly meetings with department heads?
Yeah, I
Do you
do.
attend?
I do, yep.
On a day-to-day basis, do you talk with him about any problems you might be having?
Not on a day-to-day basis, but we do, because of the MOA, I do meet with him once a week. So, you know, as long as there's no scheduling issues, then, you know, we'll meet, yeah. Yeah. Did you say something else?
Oh, just to echo what Saul said, and I've been on the interview teams for some of the program coordinator positions, is I bring like 35 years of park and rec experience to that interview because I work for the state. And so we have that more of a strength than I would think that the town manager has for this particular field. So we'd want to kind of have that weigh in.
Yeah, and I understand, and that's great, and you all, but you're not gonna be here for, I mean, you always also have to look at it like, you can't do it based on, you know, certain people
No.
that are around. I mean, and so, going
Agreed.
forward, will you continue to have people with extensive expertise, or is it more people who are care and they're, you know, they have the best of intentions and they wanna help and they're interested, but maybe they don't have that, you know, that some of the boards are like that. They're people that don't have management experience, they don't have this and so on, and they're hiring people, but that's not their thing.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're trying to balance.
Yeah, and I think that just food for thought, the way that I understand it is that a town manager wouldn't actually be expected to bring that expertise or that technical prowess to the interview, but would be more in line with that sort of COO, CEO kind of mentality, more around centralizing processes and management as a sort of more generalist term. But that to do it well would actually necessitate still having, as you said, substantial input from topical experts. And much the way it's in a private sector company, you would still have someone sitting managing everybody, but you would expect your engineers to hire your engineers and, you know, so on and so forth. So I think from what we've heard so far, it doesn't, from some of the other people who have experience with this town manager model, the strong town manager and department heads reporting to town manager, that it is more of a organizational efficiency and less that they're trying to take on those substantive and technical topics.
But I understand that would make you nervous.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
and I think-
I totally see that.
And I think, you know, we've seen, you know, and it's not, I wouldn't say it's related to anybody currently, but over the sort of the course of it, that, you know, the town managers are generally occupied with other things. And so in terms of the, you know, sort of the long-term goals, the overall strategy, the, you know, what we're trying to achieve in the programs, there is, I don't think, a lot of.
But I think those things we want to stay with you anyway. The way you just said, long-term goals, strategies, all that stuff, absolutely. It's the day-to-day stuff that we're trying to get at. And do you have the time? Because most of you probably have full-time jobs and so on, and right? I mean, so that's the yin and the yang on this, right?
So can I jump in
Yeah.
with a question? So as a commission, I mean, you seem like you're pretty hands-on. So what would you say are like your top 3 priorities as a commission, and how do you see them? What fears do you have of that potentially shifting to a strong town manager? I mean, I know hiring is one.
Yeah, I mean, I think the big thing is maintaining the program offerings and the quality of the programming. There are some things, you know, long-term that we've done some surveys and things that, you know, there are expansion things that we're not offering that we'd like to get into. I think that's a place where we have a little more focus on that as opposed to I think the, you know, if it was the higher level, sort of just the operational management, that might get lost.
And do you see that shifting with the strong town manager? I mean, based on our discussions, I don't. I know you haven't been part
I mean, I
of
think,
that, but
I don't know how, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it's something that would obviously get worked out, but I think at some point, if you're going to have a board that has one set of priorities. Whether the town manager's priorities are the same is unknown, and Alicia's stuck in the middle. So I think that's the challenge.
So hiring, programming, budgeting, financial stuff?
Yeah.
Are you involved in that? To what degree?
Very limited degree. We see it and discuss it. We talk about some of the high visibility programs, the beach and some of those activities we talked about, where we want those fees and charges to balance the budget between what we want to provide in service with what needs to be charged to make that work out, and what the town will tolerate.
But the budget should reflect your priorities,
Yes.
I would think, to some degree.
One thing, I want to say that we don't do the day-to-day stuff. The town manager, with meetings with Alicia once a week, gets involved in that. So we're not like in the day-to-day grind of daily ops.
So some of this is just, gets rid of the MOU, but just makes it, this is how things work, basically. Rather than having an MOU, it just, the reporting lines are that way. And that's part of it.
We have gone extended periods of time without an MOU.
Right.
So there was not one a year ago. This one has been in place since last fall, I think.
Can I ask what prompted you to seek an MOU?
It's kind of
Do you have anything to say on this, Mark, while you're here?
I find it fascinating. So I agree a lot with what Saul's saying about, and actually what you were saying too, Betsy, like, the town manager shouldn't be involved in setting the programs and the long-term direction for Park and Rec. That's what the board should be for.
Right.
But there's a lot of stuff that does require more day-to-day oversight and isn't really in their bailiwick as commissioners of overseeing, and having a better integration across all the departments in the town that way would be helpful. So.
Anything else you want to tell us?
I have one more thing, just because we've talked about it, but we haven't actually talked about it tonight, but I think the process of the election itself is transparent, and living in this town for almost 15 years now, working here for 10, we constantly hear that people want things to be more transparent and not to be less transparent. So, going through this process of election, the candidates have to share their priorities. They have to openly talk about their values. And, it's kind of openness and trust is built into that process. So, an appointed process kind of takes place behind closed doors. And it kind of limits the amount of the community's role for that observation process. So I know that that's something of, as a director of the department, I strive to be as transparent as I possibly can. I think that that's something extremely important. And I think that that is something that we also, as the commission themselves hold as, one of their values. And I think that's something that we want to make sure that that is something that can be honored and continued.
Video.
What's that?
Videos.
Videos, yes, indeed. Well, we do, yeah.
Go ahead, Tim, do you have something?
Yeah, no, I do. Back on the recruitment piece, I'm just trying to understand the objections or the reluctance to that. If you're hiring a new director, tomorrow, you have your own recruitment process. You'd have extended interviews where you'd bring to bear all of your experience and all of what you see as necessary for parks going into the future. And at the end of the process, you'd have more than likely one preferred candidate, maybe a number two and a number three. what's the reluctance to bringing that number one candidate to the town manager? Do you think, he or she's going to pull a rabbit out of his hat and pick someone else? Is that
Are
the?
you talking about for the staff positions or for the?
Director.
The director, I mean, if all the input that this person's getting is from you,
I
then
would
what,
think that the town manager would be involved in the interview, but not be the be-all that ends.
Yeah, and I think that's the question is, where is the
that the manager is involved in the process in the beginning?
or is the,
not at all?
if we're the body doing the sort of the recruiting and gathering, applications and resumes, and then, yes, we filter it down and offer it up, then, yeah, I think that's that falls in that substantial input category. If the town manager is doing that and then, brings one candidate or brings one of us in to say, here's the candidate, this is who we're hiring, I'd put that on the other side if that's really not the substantial
I
input.
can't imagine it would work that way, but that's.
But it's unclear at this point.
And I understand that would be the concern. I
Well,
totally
it's just
understand
a-
that would be the concern.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, all
And I
right.
think
The board would
there
be
probably
all over
is somewhere in between that makes sense, because as we've said, we are not, Peter is in this professionally, we have another member who is, but not all of us are professional management, so it would not be ideal, I think, for all of that to fall on us, but I think we do need to have a larger role, but however that falls.
Okay, thanks.
So, Betsy, can I weigh in?
Yes?
So I think that's an important part, and that's something you'll probably hear from a lot of different boards that have hiring authority, and it should be the universal process throughout, whether they're elected or appointed boards. But I'd also like to point out that if you look at all the boards, like when they're hiring below the director level, the process is very different across all the departments, and that should also be standardized. The select board aren't interviewing the assistant town administrator, right? Where they're interviewing the library, they don't interview, the people are brought to them. Conservation interviews their assistant, but so some standardization on that across should be, and I don't know if that's part of the charter or part of more of an HR process.
I don't know if we get into that level, but my comment to that would be, you still have a interviewing committee with different people on it. And it could very well, if you have somebody on your board who has particular expertise, you could have them on. It just doesn't say the board has to be on, right?
Well, the interviewing committee should be kind of similar for all of the different.
Yeah, there should be a standard across the board, absolutely.
And I think that's actually one of the
model,
things.
I'm sorry, go
Yeah,
ahead.
no, sorry, go ahead, Alan.
The model we've been kind of looking at when you're talking about whether the town manager says, okay, this guy, is that you as a board would do your interviewing and you would present two candidates, assuming you had two really good candidates. And the town manager would then say, okay, this is the guy. Or if you only had one candidate, then you're both in agreement to start with. But you wouldn't present anybody that you wouldn't be happy with if they were to be hired. So there's really no difference. The only difference you got here is that across the board, town manager has all department heads reporting to him. And that makes for good, efficient government. Everybody is on the same level, everything does, each department is following the rules that everybody has. On a day-to-day basis, you guys can't get involved in everything. But Alicia would have the town manager to go to on any issue that came up, if you couldn't handle it.
What if you had a weak town manager?
I'm sorry?
What if you had a weak town manager?
So just to clarify, you mean not a good town manager?
Yeah.
So the way it's the way that they've
You talking
been
about
using
good or bad?
An ineffective.
That's the
So-
selectman's choice.
Yeah. So the way that
They're not
the
supposed
lawyers,
to hire a bad town manager.
well, the way the lawyers have used those words with us is, by definition, if a town manager has a certain amount of appointment authority, they are deemed to be strong. It's not a word that is used to describe their capacity, their performance. It's a word that they use to describe the authority that is vested in them. But if you're asking, I think one of the things we've been trying to do through this process is say, what if? How do you ensure that Littleton's government can run smoothly with, potentially performance issues, but where we always come back to is that it is still the select board that is the ultimate executive authority in the town, and the town manager does still report to a board of 5 elected officials. And so there are these built-in checks and balances. There's also town council if there are legal issues, and the town council is accountable to the select board and thus the elected populace. So there are these ways in which even a strong, i.e. more authority town manager would have checks upon them. But going back to, sorry.
That's okay.
I was just going to answer Mark's question. I think by having that stronger town manager as well, with that oversight, they would be in a position to take responsibility for standardization. So it wouldn't so much be in the charter as this is the responsibility of the town manager to make sure everybody is hiring according to the processes. That would be in the charter, if we went that way. So,
The other thing I would add to that is, in the hiring process for a town manager or for a town administrator, if you're interviewing, if you're posting for a town manager, you're going to get a different level of candidates than for a town administrator. That's what's been proven, right? And so that's the other thing. If they come in and they see that there's a charter or there's a structure here, and I know I can work. You're not giving me all this responsibility without all the, what do they say? Responsibility without the authority, right? So if you set it up, and you set them up for success, you still got to hire the right person, but you're still doing a better job of setting them up for success by putting some of these things in place. That's the theory.
Yeah. And as far as an ineffective manager goes, the board hasn't shown much reluctance to changing forces in the middle of
But we hope going forward that will.
We had the town manager from Groton come by. I think our last meeting was it? It was very informative. They moved to, right? They moved to a strong town manager and they moved to a charter with a strong town manager.
Yeah.
Very informative discussion.
What's Groton's population?
It's the same.
About 12,000.
close, yeah,
So
a little bigger.
A little bit in the-
It could be a city.
That'll be us soon.
And I think that's what we were projecting with the developments, is that Littleton, we're at this tipping point, the 10,000, it kind of knocks us into charter territory a little bit, but very rapidly it would be in the 12 to 13, very more complex.
Okay, that was longer than I thought we were going to spend, but whenever, this has been good. It's been helpful for you, and hopefully people out there watching these things too, so that everybody gets more informed on what's going on here, which is good.
If you guys go back, you probably talk among yourselves about what we've talked about here. If you've got any further input you want to give to us, let us know. Okay?
As we go through this process, we'll be making decisions, because we have to say, okay, let's, together, let's do this, but nothing's done until it's done. We can always go back and change, and once we do whatever we recommend, it's still going to go to the select board. Okay,
And
so
from
nothing's
them,
done.
it's gonna go to town meeting,
That's
so
right. So
what-
if you learn
what's the
something or
timeline?
something you think, sorry?
What's the timeline? Maybe a recommendation, or when do
I think
recommendations?
they're looking for us to present something that could be brought to the Springtown meeting, is that right?
Yeah.
That's the idea.
It might be a little bit longer than that, too.
Right. That was
Hopefully not, but yeah.
Well, we've been, to that point, we've been told to take whatever time is needed to
You're
get this
It's
right.
important, obviously.
In terms of appointees, would the number of people on commissions change?
No,
Well, it could.
it could,
It
but
could.
there's no, that, they don't go together.
I think those are the questions we've been
Right.
typically posing to our council to say, how are these boards and commissions? Are there any state mandates? So that we're not recommending something that falls outside of standard processes, because also a charter, if approved by our select board and then by town meeting, would actually have to go to the state legislature, and if they read something that's like, well, that's not legal, it's just going to get bounced right back.
Are you a five-member board currently? And you operate fine with that? I mean, there's no desire to grow or to contract, no?
Seems reasonable.
The other thing, we do, the commission has a seat on the Community Preservation Committee. So Kate is our representative.
Okay,
on that.
yep.
So
Yep.
somebody from the five of us gets forwarded over to them
Good.
as a member, so.
Good.
Thank you.
As well.
So are there things that we should be considering that we haven't discussed tonight, in your opinions, that we should be thinking about?
No, I think just, I mean, you hear the discussion tonight, so you get where we're going and what we're trying to determine here and what we're trying to decide. So, like I said, like Alan said, if you go back and you think, oh, I wish I'd said this, or we should have thought about that, let us know. Like, we're not done yet, so.
And we're gonna have a public hearing.
Yeah, and there's gonna be a public forum in October. We're working on that. That's next on the agenda.
Our agenda.
Or later on the
Date.
agenda. So there'll be some public forums as well for other people to come in, and have comments and input and so on.
Yeah, I think if anything occurs to you where you think, well, actually, this is a operational friction for us, or actually this hasn't always been easy, or this does flip-flop depending on who's running the show, or we'd like to preserve this and we don't have it codified anywhere. If any of those things come up, they may or may not be relevant for the charter. It may be more of a policy or even a bylaw issue, but I think those are the sorts of things that we want to know about, so we can at least kind of document them and have them in consideration.
Yeah, I suppose you could look at your charter or your board, whatever it is, and just look at that based on the discussion tonight and say what fits or what doesn't fit, or what could change or what should change. Maybe that would be a helpful thing for us, just to have you do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you for your time.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. And thank you for all the amazing programming.
Anytime. Happy to do it. Okay.
All right, I'll go. So I'm Fred Freund, the chairman of the Board of Assessors. And one observation is I didn't realize you were such a newcomer, Betsy.
Exactly.
So I've been on the board a long, long time, somewhere like the late 90s. So I've seen it all. In terms of Kathy, I'll try and get some bullet points so I can save you some questions. Is when we hired Kathy, it was whatever Bonnie was, Director of Finance. I have trouble keeping her and what Steve did together. Ann from HR, myself, Lynn, what was Lynn's last name before? Well, she was a member of the board, but she was also the chief assessor in Concord, and Ken Milgren. So
Ken.
right, the outgoing assessor at the time. And essentially, it was more the finance department that did the hiring. I mean, Lynn and I had some questions from our long involvement in the board, but for the most part, it was finance, and they're the ones that make the decision. And I think we're fine with that. We don't, our input is limited. I mean, the Board of Assessors essentially works with the functional operation of the department, but not setting some goals for Kathy. She gets directives from DOR. We make sure she implements those goals. We're not trying to set, there's no policy setting in terms of the actual assessment of properties in town. And I just think in terms of being elected versus appointed, and I know you're going to pull your numbers up, but a lot of us have learned that we don't need to run for re-election, and we get enough people to write us in, and it saves us from getting 50 signatures. But I think that being elected, it gives us a sense of transparency. We're set apart from everybody else. I think an appointed board where you're being appointed, whether it's by, if you say you gave the building department seat or one appointee or just the town manager, multiple appointees, we've experienced periods where there's somebody trying to advocate for a specific taxpayer on a specific issue, and that has always been problematic for us because we don't really have a lot of leeway in the decisions we make. We have to follow mass appraisal guidelines, we've got to follow the DOR guidelines, and when you've got somebody advocating for or against our department from the outside, it's not a good look. the optics are bad, and it throws a monkey wrench into the operations, because people then think, well, I've got this person on my side, or this person's standing up for us, and in reality, they've got no standing, and we can't really vary from what we're set out to do. So that would be my.
Can I just ask, so could that happen though in an elected position as much or more so than if it's appointed?
I don't think so.
Somebody
I mean,
said, I've got a bone I want to work, and I'm going to go in and I'm get myself elected because there's nobody on the agenda now. There's nobody on.
I'm gonna do a
the-
write-in,
Yeah.
write-in campaign.
Yeah, but I mean.
Right.
I'm
No,
playing
no,
devil's
that
advocate
make-
here.
no, I understand what you're saying. I'm just thinking, there haven't been
Hasn't
issues
happened
on
that
it.
way,
I
right.
mean, we did have a board member one time that decided he was gonna rework the way the board worked. And he left after one term, because you can't change what we do, you know? If we're required by law to do X, Y, and Z, that's what we're gonna do, and you can't work against it. But so we've never really I see what you're saying. I'm thinking more along specific issues.
I think, can I speak for a minute?
Sure, absolutely.
I feel like there's a difference between somebody wanting to get on the Board of Assessors because they don't feel like there's enough exemptions for the elderly, and they're gonna get on and they're gonna push this agenda for more exemptions or whatnot. My worry in reaching out to colleagues and asking them what they thought, and I don't know that this is gonna happen, I'm just saying, I'm learning here from listening to that, the board, Park and Rec, and hearing what you guys have. This is all new to me. We're in a certification year, so I'm, guns rolling to get a tax rate this year. This is, I'm kind of delving in and trying to catch some of your meetings when I can, so if I am not speaking correctly, I apologize. But my big concern is, say, I'm separate right now from the, like agendas such as, we'll just say, for instance, Sal found a parcel that's down the street, and he says, we can, it's $10 million, the taxes are X amount, if we got it, is there any way to reduce it? I feel like as a select board and, the town administrator, you're setting, how much housing we want to have, how much commercial, they're looking at that large picture. I don't want to be part of that on my board, or having somebody appointed that would further a goal to bring assessments down or taxes on a lucrative piece because that will bring in X amount of housing or whatever it might be. And like I said, these are just some things when I reached out to other communities, some of that was the big one from other assessors they were getting, is that you just wouldn't want somebody appointed that's going to further, a directive of the town versus MGL and what's fair and equitable. And I don't know that would happen. I'm just saying that's a concern of mine after, yeah.
You got
Who
went
first?
Is there any training or any requirements for board members to go through, like we to do online something or other? I mean, is there some
There is.
professionalism for?
Every board member has to take course 101,
Yeah.
and that delves into assessing exemptions, and it sort of brings everybody up on board so they understand a little bit about what qualifies for an exemption, deferments, it gives you a little bit of taxation, a little bit about the classification hearing, and a little bit about what happens.
So someone may
yes.
be coming in cold, not knowing really what the assessor work is, and/or have an agenda, but then they go through this required training, which I'm assuming is state.
Yeah, mandated, yes,
Yeah.
it is. For it to touch any value online, you have to take this course. And
Yeah, similar questions, and that was one of the things that was shared with us as a consideration when one is trying to think appointed, elected, is the level of technical knowledge and expertise that someone might need to bring, and if it is a very highly specialized or sort of would benefit from a technical background, or I think the word they used was sort of professionalized role that leans appointed, so that you can go out and identify specific individuals for that, versus elected, where you may have a situation where someone could come in with very little knowledge of how to actually do or be an advisor. But it sounds like the training kind of covers that.
I can see what you're saying, but I'm very fortunate. I have an appraiser on my board. I have the building commissioner from Acton on my board, and I have the former COA administrator on my board who had 30-plus years or whatever, I forget how many years of municipal experience. So I've been super lucky that I can't think of a better board that brings more to the table than the one I have, and they're elected.
Do you see any potential challenges going forward, sort of thinking a decade from now or 2 decades from now, with the competitive sort of nature of other communities trying to get them on their boards, or sort of finding that level of quality that it sounds like we're benefiting from now in Littleton, but in the future?
I mean, that's a great question, but I think of it both ways. I mean, the Board of Assessors is, I think it's a little bit different than other boards, and that's just me, for the level of heat we take, for taxation, for what we do. I think there's a little bit more, so I think appointing, I think you'd have just a hard time appointing somebody to my board as somebody running for election. It's not a position that, like I said.
It's not fun like Park and Rec.
It's not. It's not. We take a lot of heat. You run into people at the supermarket. You run into, you know what I mean? It's not a highly, so I think just to even get somebody to appoint it, I think they're both going to be difficult. I think my board would always be a more difficult board, whether it's appointed or otherwise.
So what's our number for?
0.6.
What is it?
0.6.
So that's gonna be my question. So now, so you're elected, but when you, so if somebody leaves and you need to find somebody else, how do you find, what's the process? The current board kind of goes over and tries to find somebody to run, and then you ask them to run?
Pretty much. I mean, we've done that. I mean, I didn't run last time. I just had, you know, I talked to a couple of people that were running and just said, you know, get out the write-in vote, because I didn't have time to get signatures. When Lynn got on, she got 7 votes, 7 write-in votes. I remember calling her in Concord and saying, congratulations, and it was just dead silence.
So you don't even need, you just need
You're
whatever.
kidding me.
So the question is, do we need to go through this rigmarole? And I call it a rigmarole where less than one person runs for office, and there's no, I forget what they call this chart, whether there's a contested election or not. There's not a contested election for these roles, generally speaking. One person runs, one person gets elected. And you've got to go through, there's some administrative requirements also, and we've got a lot of people being elected. And I guess the question is, do we as a town want to go through electing all these positions when, by the way, anybody can be elected? Unqualified people can be elected. I don't think that's as true, especially with a strong appointment process where there's eyes on it. But I have no experience with what you do, and I could get elected to the role, right?
How does appointed, and who would you be appointed?
Well, this is what I was going to say. I don't think the process is really any different.
So if you're going to Joe, who's on the finance committee, and you'll be like, oh, the assessors really need somebody, things are getting rough over there. And he's like, absolutely not. Like, that's one board I don't want to be on. Like, what is your process? I'm trying to see how you envision appointing, because I don't see everybody jumping and being like, I'm going to be on the assessors. And I'm just asking that question.
My view of how this would work is basically what happens today. You need somebody on, the current board says we need somebody, who do we know? And say, oh, here's a person, they're willing to do it. And then you go to the town manager or the select board, whoever's doing the appointments, and say, here's somebody who's willing to do this
Just
role.
as an example,
It's the same process.
we essentially were all appointed to this commission,
correct.
right? So you fill out the form, you upload your CV, you say sort of why you want to be on it, and then there's this slightly strange process where everybody sort of publicly deliberates. But at the end of the day, it is essentially a decision that is made by the executive authority of the town to say that this person is going to be put into that role. And so if there isn't 10, 20 people running, and it's always just one person, you know you want that person, the board knows they want that person.
So the only thing I would say to that is, you're the charter committee. I know a lot of people who are interested in this type of thing. What would your process be if nobody wrote in any interest to it?
I mean, if nobody had put their hands up for the charter committee?
Say now the Board of Assessors, say I'm down 2 members, there's no interest forms, and nobody from any of your other committees, nobody from other towns, because you said you could go outside town, is interested. I'm just asking, what is your process in that?
From my standpoint, it's the same as if it's elected. You go out and you find somebody and you say,
So they have the
Can you
same
do this?
qualifications.
It's the
as
same
what we're saying at
process,
the
it's
end of-
just
But
instead
at the end
of-
of the day, my point is, then that's a
Right.
person that doesn't have these qualifications that you guys think of.
I view
But
this
it's-
very
yeah.
similar to the trust commissioners, which I'm a part of.
Yeah.
And it's kind of the same thing. It's not, you need some financial sensibilities or whatever to be on there and so on. And so what happens is, when somebody's leaving, then they go and they find somebody and they start asking people and say, hey, will you run and will you do this? But so in the end, is that any different than an appointment?
So, right, either way, that's my point. I'm gonna get the same
But,
qualifications.
well,
and I'm gonna
except
have-
that
But I think-
somebody could get elected that's not qualified.
Right, and with
But
the
either way,
appointment, you're
if somebody
doing the
gets-
vetting,
Yeah.
you do the vetting first.
Right.
Right.
And then you offer the position
Right.
on the board, as opposed to you get elected and then you try to train them and bring them up to speed.
And
or
there are
whatever.
people who don't, in your case, you got people and you said just do the write-ins. Some people say, if you appoint me, fine, but I don't want to go through the election process. I just don't want to do it.
So I think the difference would be, though, in a completely, say, neutral universe without the current examples that we have, someone could run for election to the board and just through their charisma get elected or what have you. And as the chief assessor and the other board members, you wouldn't have a say in that. They would be elected and then they would sit there. For appointments, they still do have to go through a technical vetting process. So they would have to have that support of the board, the assessor, and then ultimately whoever's finalizing that appointment. So in some ways, it actually could offer more checks and balances to ensure that you do get the people that you want to serve.
But to simplify the whole thing too, is that if it get down to the point where you have problems getting people to run for the board, you could always have the appointments made by the select board, or you could have a town manager make those appointments. I mean, this committee could actually write that down. From now on, the Board of Assessors, our suggestion is the Board of Assessors will be appointed by the town manager or by the select board. It could go that way, so those possibilities are there.
But they're not going to do it on their own. The select board isn't going to go out and appoint somebody. They're going to work with you and say, who are the right candidates for this, because they don't
Yeah,
know.
But is that necessarily the case? I mean, I think we've seen, since I've been on.
Okay,
I
yeah.
mean, and I can go back where we had some issues with the selectmen.
Yeah.
Or a select board member complaining about the way we value vacant land in town, which was, unfounded, but it created probably 6 months of work for Ken and myself. And I understand it's kind of crazy that we go out and dig somebody up and get them to run, but I think they feel that it's a little different. They're not appointed by anybody. And it's, there have been a lot of us since I've been on that board. And although we have computers now, which we didn't back when I first got on. You guys are laughing, we used to have to borrow a computer to do the tax rate, because there was only like one in town hall.
That's better than my one stoplight story.
Groton's town manager. But I understand what you're saying, and I understand the appointment process, but the concern would be that that's where you're gonna end up with some advocacy. You're gonna have a group that's in charge of appointing, and we wanna see you really drum up new growth somehow, however you can force it in, and that's not how it works. And, we've always had sort of a little bit, Joe, right, I never gave you a recommendation on what the tax rate should be, did I? Every year you would ask it, every year I would say no.
You'd smile like that and go, no.
So, but I mean, I think and again, once we're all gone and whatever, it may be different, but I think it gives us a feeling we're a little bit more independent, and we're not gonna feel that pressure.
I think that's a fair statement, I think, for this. But Mark, or Tim, or Mark, do you have anything you want to say?
Go ahead, Mark, yeah.
I would say that, though, I understand the political ramifications of the appointments, and I kind of agree with that. But they haven't actually had anyone that stood for election in quite a while, right? It's all been write-in. So in my opinion, that's even worse, right? Because now they didn't go out and collect, even to get 50 signatures for people, right? They got, 10 people to say, please write in my name when you go. So it's completely completely opaque thing, because you don't know who until you go and find out that someone wrote in those 10 names. As far as you know, no one's interested in this. It's even more opaque now. So if they want to stay elected, then perhaps we have to change the rules on write-ins to make them a higher bar, so that if it's, so that a write-in at least has some semblance of, you know, if you don't meet certain we're going to go to the appointed positions, which is what would happen if no one was written in anyway, right? They would find someone and they'd come and have an appointment for 1 year.
Tim, do you have something you want to say?
Well, yeah, I was, again, going to ask the question about the numbers, Fred. Given that we've got a lot of write-ins and sticker campaigns over the years, and is a 5-person board warranted? Could the assessors live with a 3-person board? If we were to make a change, recommend a change?
I will say that when I'm going to like education and I'm going to school, everybody's super envious that I have a 5-person board. Because they said sometimes just the quorum thing and the 3-person board. But I mean, I'd be open to either.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
Mark's point is well taken, and I understand, and that makes sense. On the other hand, Saul made the point that he engages people when he's getting signatures and talk about it. When I talk about the assessors, they go away, so it's the exact opposite way, Saul.
That could just be you.
I'll tell you what, it works with cold callers, Mark.
No, it's,
I mean, my only concern, and it's minor, would be with the 3-person board, is that if you start, Kathy sometimes has votes that need to be taken, and where you might have trouble finding a quorum, but that would be it.
On Gateway, I need signatures, and sometimes it's hard.
But other than that, I don't see why it would have to be more. I mean, honestly, until the last, 2 terms that we've had people on, have we had like votes that are disputed or nay votes against things that are mandated by state law. So I don't think it would be an issue.
but you like having 5, and you have, I mean, in your process that you have today, you manage to find people to fill those spots.
I mean, I like having 5, but yes, could we deal with 3? Yeah, I'd be comfortable with that.
Interesting. Okay.
Okay, just
Yeah.
somewhat unrelated, or related, but if you move to an appointed, do you have a direction yet as to whether that would be the town manager making the appointments, the select board, or
Well,
some
I would say in the charter.
What's that?
That would go in the charter, who does the
Okay.
appointment.
But that's something still up for discussion.
Mm-hmm. And I think there are some that make sense. Clearly, it's the town manager, and there's other cases where, no, maybe the select board is an option. But there's some people say the select board is strictly policy and strategy, and so they're not doing that stuff. But right now, they still do police and fire chiefs and things like that. And, how big of a town are we? How much you want to, feel like you're still, people are attached and so on. And, it's just, there's not right or wrong answers on this stuff, right? That would be easy. Unfortunately, it's not.
Just have to keep in mind that we're talking about the form of government going forward, and try to stay away from the personalities who are sitting in the seats now. Like Fred, for instance.
And I think one of the...
You've done a wonderful job for the town all these years, and your expertise is way up there. But you're not eligible to be here, Fred.
Yeah, I know.
I don't mean you're going to the big assessors of the sky, but you've got to retire at some point.
So I have just a question. So I know I had watched today, I was trying to watch some of your meetings. I know Mark had said that they transitioned from town administrator to a town manager and charter, and his boards are all elected. They chose to keep it as elected boards. How many communities have you guys reached out to other communities, just in case I wanted to ask some questions on how it worked and the pros and cons went to elected? Could you reach out?
We have data. We haven't talked to other towns. We have data the consultants gave us. I'd have to go in and look and see where they are.
But we had
Yeah.
a list of like peer towns
Right.
that they
Towns
said were
are
our
somewhat similar to us based on
size.
size and other things and what they are. And a lot of them, honestly, they have their charter. The ones who have gone through the charter process, you can go to their town website and read their charter and see what's in there.
Yeah. I just didn't know if you knew.
Yeah, no, I don't. I don't. Yeah.
Just one comment, if to take some of the politics out, if they were to go to an appointed board, you could do something like similar to how FinCom is appointed, where you distribute the appointments among other boards, so it's not all in the hands of one, right? Like Light and Water could do an appointment, the school could do an appointment, and then you have less potential of someone trying to put their, as much of a thumb on the scale. Or,
Yeah, I like that,
And just and then just going back to that sort of how does it happen, we also heard that from both the legal counsel and then the Groton town manager, a lot of these things can be phased in. So it's if it is determined that XYZ is going to go into the charter and it is approved, those positions don't change overnight. In some cases, it might be at the end of a current term or maybe when that person retires. So even if Littleton decides to have some of these changes in place, they may not actually come into effect for several years potentially and don't have to impact individuals currently in the role.
No, I understand.
That
I even was watching some things and did a little bit of research, and even sometimes when things don't work, there's potential years down the line.
Exactly.
And we look at it and say that this didn't work as good as we thought.
Yeah.
For X,
Yeah.
so
Or maybe it worked then and now it's not working now, and so things change.
And I think that's a great way of
Yeah.
looking at it, is
Yeah.
that it's, learning curve for all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but if, again, like we said for the other crew too, if after you leave here, you're talking to some colleague and you come up with, oh, I wish I had thought of that, or I wish I had known that, please share it with us.
Can I ask?
Yeah?
Characteristics of an elected board. An elected board. Someone with little training or expertise could quickly and easily become effective in the work. Example, a resident with no experience. Appointed position or board. Someone with little training or expertise would have significant difficulty in performing the work effectively, potentially creating significant risks for the community. So they talk about appointed boards being more as someone with experience as a professional in that area.
If you can get that, yeah.
You have gotten that, right?
I mean, I have that, and so I do see that, I'm not trying to dispute that, I can see the premise.
Right.
I'm just saying, there's also the premise of that if there was somebody that if there was nobody willing to be appointed, you would still go back to that pool of getting the best that you could get that might not be super knowledgeable as some of the people have been, you know what I mean?
You could, and I think my notes indicate that actually, if you have appointed board positions, they can be filled. If that's what we were talking about earlier, we talked about this with the Collins Center, and an appointed position can be a non-resident. Is that what we were talking about earlier?
Yeah, for the board versus the staff.
Yes. So the board, yes, can
Yeah,
be
we're
a
talking about-
non-resident. So in an there are cases where
Don't know
you,
why a
maybe on
non-resident would
your
wanna be on.
board, you would go to somebody outside the town possibly to serve on your board if they were willing.
That one I want to clarify.
No, wait a minute, because we're talking about directors, I think that's what came in through.
I have it right in my notes
Yeah.
about boards from the discussion. I asked Anthony and
Mel.
the other gentleman, is there a distinction with an elected position versus an appointed position? Is there a different pool? Yes. Elected persons have to be town residents. Appointed persons do not have to be town residents.
We were talking in terms of directors at that point.
It's right on the board. I wrote it right on
I
the
know,
board.
I've read that, but
Yeah.
that doesn't say who we're talking about. But
We have people on your
when
board
we
that are not-
discussed this, it was my opinion, we were talking about directors, and not members of boards.
Yeah, boards I
We were
assume
sticking-
were residents.
Yeah.
Because who else
Yeah.
cares more about
I'm
the town?
again, I'm not sure who would want to volunteer to be on the board of someplace where you don't live, but it could happen, I guess.
Yep.
Yeah, who's gonna volunteer from Acton to be on our board if it doesn't pay
That
anything,
doesn't,
right?
Right.
yeah, it's got a stake in it,
Does
yeah.
it? I've been on a long time.
I let that slip, I didn't mean to.
Tim?
No, I just wanted to point out that the Board of Assessors, one of the few boards that I know of, there's required mandatory training
Right,
for
training,
someone that,
right.
even if they know nothing about,
Right.
they get elected and they don't have a background, they
Right.
have to
They have to
go
go through
to.
that training, yeah.
Yeah,
And I would also say that in the case of our board, even if you move to appointments, that you would not want to appoint people from outside the town. You want people that understand the nature and the character of the community.
And then also have to pay the bill.
Definitely that.
Can I ask
Okay.
a question? I
Okay.
know with the Park and Rec, we talked a lot about sort of some of the operational pieces. Who do you report to, Kathy, and how does that work, or what changes do you envision if we go to a strong town manager model?
So, up until recently, I reported to the finance director.
Okay.
And where we did some shuffling around recently, I'm now reporting to the town administrator. And then I report to DOR, I report to my 5-member board,
Right,
I have a lot of people I report to.
But functionally, it's part of the finance team.
I'm part of the finance team.
Yeah.
But I probably interact with my board more than the finance team and.
Yeah. But for classification,
day-to-day,
yeah.
Just, if we're having questions on quality manual, what we want to put in there and what we think is effective or not. If I'm, working on a certain neighborhood and I want some input, it's more, so I'd say I deal with the finance director, when it was Ryan, more on day-to-day things, like, as part of the finance team, the office, if, how the office was functioning with my budget, those type of things. But whenever it's with assessments, exemptions, deferrals, whatnot, it's 100% the board.
Got it.
Can I ask a follow-up question to that?
Mm-hmm.
Who does your review? Who has
So
input on your review?
Ryan used to do my review, and Jim just did my most recent one. And I'm sure Jim is going to be.
Does your board have input on your review?
Say that again?
Do the board members do any of your review?
No.
So your board is there really more for technical and for decisions on the numbers and so on like that, as opposed to the day-to-day operational things.
Day-to-day operations is
Okay, and they're not involved in the hiring. You said the hiring is not, the board's not involved in the hiring. Okay. Okay.
Our hiring is very similar to when I was assistant to Alicia with, the team doing the interviewing and how we, measure up and what all of us are.
Okay. Any input for us? You want to make sure we know?
No, I think I feel good. I understand both, you know what I mean? I understand both and, where the chips may fall. I mean, I would work with both. It's fine. It's not gonna change that I come in and have LA3s and, have staff and cyclical inspections and it really, you know what I mean? It's not gonna change my day to day, but, I have a little bit more to learn, I gotta be honest, and I think I'm gonna outreach and maybe try to find some communities that have it, just so I understand a little better. And I definitely will come back to you guys if I have any questions.
That'd be great. Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thank
They're
you.
going to appoint people, they have to come to the 7:30 a.m. meetings.
Changing that.
You guys need a marketing campaign.
Yeah.
The appointed board will change that.
All right, well, thank you very much for your time and for staying. Yeah, thank you very much. Okay. Productive, good time. That was good. All right, so how do we want to go through the next one? You want us to go, Charlotte, do you want to, should we go through the document first? There were some questions that they had in, or I think I'd rather go through Charlotte's list, honestly. What do you guys think? Yes?
Yes, but then I really want to see if we can nail down a date.
Oh, yeah. Well, we're definitely gonna get to that. That's why I'm kind of pushing past the document stuff a little bit. We could do that next time if we have Collins on the call. But we can still go through Charlotte's report now, I think, and talk about a couple of these things that we've been discussing and see if we come to some determinations.
So as much as I feel like AI is sort of going to be the apocalyptic downfall of all of us, I also find it very useful when I'm trying to mine minutes. So it's like, it's a balance.
Yeah.
And so I did try to synthesize a little bit all of our past minute tracker and sort of use that to help me process a little bit where are the outstanding issues, and then hopefully be able to use this to kind of also track and reference where we've talked about these things. And as you can see, they come up in quite a few of our previous minutes. And then the other thing I was just going to note, I think in the tracker it does say, I think it's like a justification needed or something. I think we discussed a while back, if and when we make these decisions, we're going to want to document why we made these decisions. That's why I added in some of the pros, the cons, like the things that had come up, so that wherever the chips may fall, as as Kathy said, we can at least document kind of what we discussed. So, and then I added just sort of this key question at the end of each section. Do we have enough information at this point in time to kind of make a call? And the three big ones around, these are the three, or some of the big ones, right? Yep. It's the town manager authority and scope, other elected officials, and the select board, and they are all interdependent. But there are a few things where it seemed like they were outstanding on the tracker, and we probably could say at this point, okay, this is where we feel like we're headed. So anyway, that's what it was intended for, but certainly not perfect. I was also...
Okay. I thought on the town manager authority that we had already decided as a group that we wanted to go forward with the assumption that we would do a town manager, a strong town manager. Now, but we were still open in terms of the police and fire chief were the ones that were still open, for the most part.
So when I went back to the notes, like, we agreed that regardless the title, we liked
Right.
the title, but the decisions that we make about who they manage
Right.
will determine
Determine
whether
how
or
strong,
not they're
how
strong.
okay.
So I guess that was the part where it felt
Okay.
a bit circular after
All right.
a while. Because if we say, yes, you're a strong town manager, but you don't actually have any direct reports, that would,
Some of these, a lot of these are, okay, that's
but your
fair.
point was
Okay.
taken, Betsy, on like, it is very possible to have a strong police chief, a strong fire chief, and a strong town manager. Like that, those
And they
are
could
not-
report to the town manager.
Yes,
They
and they
could.
would still be
And they'd
strong.
still be a strong
Yes,
police chief and a strong fire
exactly.
chief.
Yeah, so
Because
that's
being
not...
a strong police chief and fire chief just means that they hire and fire their own people without going through another process.
So in that model, they could report to the town manager but still be appointed by the select board?
Yes.
Okay.
You could. And they could even...
But I don't...
They could even be appointed by the town manager, report to the town manager, and still be strong because they would still manage their own stuff.
Right, I understand that. I guess when I think about the strong town manager and all of the directors essentially reporting to the town manager, it seems odd to me that, because presumably the town manager would be hiring all those directors, interviewing all those directors because they would report to the town manager. The strong fire and police chief were saying, but they would be appointed by the select board. And that, that's a carve out.
And I think in that case, you would say that they report to the, in my opinion, if we did that, we'd say they report to the select board. They don't report to the town manager. That they're definitely working together all the time, and like what happens today, they're always in sync. But if they're appointed by the select board, they basically work for the select board.
But if we do that carve out, does that cause some inefficiencies? Because I think what we were trying to drive towards with the strong town manager is that we are increasing efficiency and streamlining processes and standardizing on processes.
Right.
But if you have the police chief and the fire chief not reporting to the town manager and instead of reporting to the select board, who I think we've discussed that having 5 people that need to vote on something does cause inefficiencies, are we accomplishing the goal of making our government more efficient?
Can you say it again, that the 5 members cause inefficiencies?
So specifically, I remember going back to payroll, where every member of select board has to sign off on payroll, and I thought that as a group, we collectively said that's inefficient.
Yeah, look at that, but I'm talking about just the police chief and fire chief, the appointments of those.
Well, it would just mention that it would be possible that the police chief and fire chief would report not to the town manager, but to the select board. And my interpretation is, if they're reporting to a board of 5 people, does that not cause inefficiencies in the management of those 2 roles?
I agree with that. I guess my point is that I'm still open to this, to have the, and this is just an opinion, to have the select board make the appointments of the fire and police chief, but they do report to the town manager, so every day type
I'm
of thing.
also in favor of that. I was just trying to suss out all the pros and cons of the possibilities. I'm in favor of that as well.
It's just me, I didn't understand.
No, yeah, I was trying to I don't know how to describe it other than a train of thought on arguing for both sides, pros and negatives.
Yeah,
Yeah,
five,
and I think the
five
thing that
bosses
seemed-
versus one
Yeah.
is
And I
the,
think the thing that seemed to be really the most friction from, I think, the police chief and the fire chief was around being appointed by the town manager. That they really felt like that would be potentially not potentially. They did not think that that would be a good idea to be appointed.
And I
Yeah.
tend to agree with them as well. I like the idea of the select board appointing them, and I also like the idea of them reporting to the town manager. From like a day-to-day operation, this is who their boss is.
I agree, and being on the board for like 21 years, I just thought the process that they go through when they hire a police chief and fire chief, the whole process of that center that they bring in, I forgot what they call it, Mark.
Assessment.
You know?
Assessment center.
Assessment center, and it's usually former police chiefs or fire chiefs. They run this tremendous program that goes through, and they come back and make recommendations. So you have 5 people there making that choice there. So that's why I'm some in favor of that part of it.
So even in the case, I think, if I recall correctly, there was a recommendation for a police chief who was related to someone on the select board.
I was on the board at that time.
But you have 4 other people that can say, absolutely not. And presumably that makes it a little more fair than just, one person. So what I guess what I'm getting at is if we had that same scenario and you had a town manager whose relative wanted to be police chief, by having the select board appoint them instead of the town manager, you avoid that conflict of interest.
I agree 100%.
I also feel like if we're
I think that's a real
taking-
corner case, though. The odds of someone having a relative that was a candidate for police or fire is pretty slim.
Not really.
That's what happened.
It happened here, I know. But I don't think we should build everything around these one-offs.
I agree with you. I
Yeah.
agree with you.
What else?
I
Yeah.
think having the select board, the 5 votes, just adds a level of transparency and accountability instead of just putting that power in.
Yes,
one
and I also
person,
think
but
they
it's
feel
two.
very strongly that
They should
it's
be.
more important for them to be appointed by the select board than the town manager. I think there's some element of, not reputation, but sort of dignifies
I
the
would
office or
perceive it
something.
as
I don't know.
The
Responsibility.
public is
Yeah.
putting our trust in you as
Right.
someone to keep
Right.
us safe. If you're just appointed by someone who doesn't even live here,
Right,
Or-
I think
it
that's,
doesn't
Or
really
he's
mean
gone
as
next
much.
week.
I think
Yeah.
that's it, I think,
No.
yeah.
It's kind of the level of,
we kind of need to weigh up those our recommendations against, if you were just completely coming in from outside and looking at this on paper versus what's right for Littleton. And if you're proposing something that is really going to be met with a lot of concern, distrust, if you were recommending something that neither the police or fire chiefs agreed with, I just feel like it's a non-starter as well. So I think there's a really rational argument for saying appointed by select board, managed by town manager, and you maintain some of that efficiency without
Except,
losing the transparency.
Except
so now,
personality
I got
friction.
appointed by the select board,
Yes.
and I've got an issue with the town manager, and I say, well, you didn't hire me, they did.
right, yeah. There would definitely be
Well,
friction.
presumably the select board and the town manager would be working together as well.
That's presumably, and I would assume.
But it could
even
come
if
up
they didn't report to
a
the town
couple of
manager,
years
they would
in, there could be
working together.
an incident or an issue or something that both
Right.
sides kind of clashed on, and then
Different.
Yeah.
board.
I mean,
This happens in the professional workplace as well.
Absolutely.
Like,
Yeah.
you have remediation plans, you have
Absolutely.
mediators, like.
Yeah.
I would think that,
Well, the guy's got to report to somebody.
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
agreed.
exactly. You can have issues with
He could
anybody.
very well have an issue with the select board if he's reporting to them.
I mean, I'll go on public record and say, I don't always get along with my boss. And you know what, somehow, we find a way.
Get to the minutes.
So the most efficient way is reporting to the town manager.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
And I agree, you ameliorate it by being appointed by the select board.
Mm-hmm.
And that also gives inside candidates a little more comfort that if you work your way up at the police department, you might end up being the chief.
Yeah. I think there's a sort of I guess to me it also seems like an operational balance as well, because we're saying not that suddenly the town manager is going to now set policy for the department. It's not going to. It's just day-to-day operational efficiency, and I think this theme keeps coming up, right? That if Littleton is getting more complex, is getting larger, it's just the day-to-day management is going to become harder and harder if the select board is having to oversee, all of those micro issues.
And they're part-time, and they may not be available, and police and fire could have something serious that they really need addressed now,
Yeah.
things like that as well.
Especially
right?
with the new developments, and yeah.
So is that where we're heading? You want to put a stake in the ground on this one?
As of
Are there other
September
people who
15th.
don't agree with that one?
No?
Appointed by select board, but report to town manager?
It'll be interesting to discuss at the public
Well,
forum.
it might be, and there
That's
are
what we
people
are,
who
right.
feel comfortable
Yes.
about, this is, and that's good. I mean, people should feel, I think they, for the most part, I think people
Yeah.
are comfortable with the police and fire and feel confident of them, and so we don't want to mess that up, Do you guys have something you want to say on this?
I just, a general statement, I've heard, I've listened to a lot of your meetings, and I've heard a lot of discussion about efficiency, and I didn't grow up in New England, and so this form of government is newish to me. I've been here 20-some years, but obviously putting all authority in one person is going to be very efficient. I think it's a terrible idea. And I think some of the I call it charm of small town New England is that we have these not entirely efficient systems that make things work. I also have concerns that if you do in fact professionalize all these things, our government is going to get very expensive. That's just my.
That's the way the world works. Somebody's at the top,
But
and it's inefficient if you have little fiefdoms and kingdoms out here that you can't control
that's
or no
absolutely
input
true.
to.
We have managed to get along so far with a fairly inefficient system.
Yep.
So I'll add in my 2 cents worth on this, and I think, if, the select board should be in the same boat as Park and Rec and all these others that, if we're hiring someone, right, other than the town manager, administrator, whatever, right, they should follow the same process, where we hire them, through consulting or whatever, for, like the Park and Rec director would be effectively hired by the Park and Rec board with the approval of the town administrator. That's the easy process. The firing process is much more complicated, and no one's talked about that, right? Who has dismissal authority? And that's where it will get a lot stickier, I think, right? If the town manager decides they don't like the Park and Rec director or the police chief and try to get, dismiss them without the board's approval, then things are going to, that's when things are going to fall apart.
No, that's a very good point.
Just coming back to because it's the theme that has come up, centralizing all authority into one person. And I do, from what I understand at least, I think that could be a kind of a phrasing we would want to avoid, not just because it's not a great idea or feeling, but that it isn't entirely accurate in that a town manager is still hired by the select board. They still are accountable to the select board. There's a town council, which is also independent. There are still boards and commissions that we would anticipate having a lot of influence and input. So that, yes, I can absolutely see how it could be perceived that way, but I don't know if we want to be promoting this idea that it's a centralization of all authority versus a centralization of sort of organizational efficiency, because that individual is still fireable. I mean, and they're still, they're manageable. Someone manages them as well, so they would still be accountable for all of those decisions, and they would also be expected to delegate, I think, which is, we're not necessarily saying that individual themselves would be doing every single little bit, but they would have their HR director, they have their town team to manage. But yeah, because I think that notion is a scary one right now, right?
Can I add on to that? You were talking about elected versus appointed boards and whether if they were appointed, they were by the town administrator or the select board. And I will say that having the boards, I mean, I think this is a topic for an entire meeting on its own, but having the boards appointed by the town administrator, town manager scares me even more, right?
I don't think we're talking about the boards.
Well, you mentioned that on if
Yeah.
the park and rec or the assessors weren't elected, who appoints them, right? Are they appointed by the town manager, right? That scares me a lot, because now that is one person who
Yeah.
can do that in their back office with no public record, right? And I don't necessarily like the power concentrated in the select board either, but at least they're open meetings. So.
Yeah, no, for me, the town manager, town administrator is staffing. The boards and committees are select board or elected. It can't all be in one. That was my interpretation of this all along.
I think it
It's
might have been said
consistent.
along the way, but if it was said, it was more of a point of we want to discuss everything. I don't think the board had any kind of feel that would be the way they wanted to go.
Yeah.
Well, but we have talked about some of these boards that, I mean, should they be elected? Because there really aren't ever elections, they're just.
But if they
Right.
were appointed, my assumption
would
was
not
also
be
that if it was
the
a
town
board,
manager.
that it would be the select board
Yeah.
appointing
But,
the board. Although we did discuss all permutations.
At some point, didn't we talk about language where we discussed the appointment authority of the town manager, but that there was always this board not necessarily a veto, but the board had to vote to ratify the manager's appointments or they weren't effective.
Minimally, or makes appointment recommendations. There's a fine line here.
Yeah, some kind of review.
In the, what are we putting a stake in the ground about the police and who? So it could be, and I want to be careful because I'm leaning toward a strong town manager and is keeping fire. And then the question becomes, I like the notion of the board being involved. And then the question becomes, how is the select board involved? Does the town manager make a recommendation of a person to the select board for appointment? Or is it the other way around? Who's making, so there's some fine points here. But I think our sense was that select board would have a heavy involvement in most committee and board appointments.
Yeah,
I
that
think-
to me is a clear, to me, when I think of
Two
the town
different
manager,
things.
town administrator, it's staff, it's
Staff.
employees, it's operations, it's day-to-day, it's not the policies,
The board,
the
it's the
committees,
policies,
the over,
right.
because where's the oversight
No
then?
change,
If everything
right? Yeah.
reports,
Yep.
I
It
was
can't
under
be
the
that
same
way.
impression.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
So coming back to this one,
Yes.
do we want to just, and again, I'm only noting these down as like
Yeah.
rolling minutes, I guess, rolling
Well,
recommendations.
But then we need to get, but then we want
need
it
to
incorporated
get
in
there.
the document, so this is, at some point, we gotta get this stuff.
Okay.
Again, we can go back and change it later, but at some point, you gotta say, this is where we're heading.
As of
Put it in
today-
writing and move on.
As of today, we're saying that we think that the fire and police chiefs would be appointed by the select board and managed by the town manager, or report to the town manager
that's our
for day-to-day
starting point.
operations. Okay. The other one on here, which is, I feel like,
What were you on, what we were just talking about in terms of the boards? That if they were appointed, they would not be appointed by the town manager?
we can make that, that's on the, yeah, I think, well, there's a lot of things under this
Okay, so we're
items
giving,
2 and 3, and it gets all very messy, but that is a
Yep.
nice clear-cut thing to state that if a board or commission member were not an elected position, that we would recommend that they would always be appointed by the select board and not the town manager. That's at least, I'm just trying to repeat what was said here.
presumably in those cases, it's gonna be like with assessors and like trust commission and so on, where that process is that the people that are currently on the commission go out and find somebody, and then they recommend to the select board, this is who we want you to appoint. Right? I mean,
Or you could do an open call.
Or
like
you have
the
an open
charter
call too,
committee,
right? And
put it
in
in
some
the
cases you have that,
newsletter.
right? If there's
In the
somebody
same way
interested,
that we went.
always be
Yeah.
open. Yeah.
process
But the,
and-
the town manager could be recommending the promotion of the deputy.
But that's to the staff position.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
all right.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the town manager may have recommendations for the boards too, but they don't get the final, they're not, they just want input.
Okay, so that one
Yeah,
seems
yeah.
relatively clear-cut. Non-elected. The other one that came up a few times, oh, sorry, did you want to move on or not? We want to,
Sure.
because the one that
Yeah.
came up quite a few times in our notes was around the town clerk, but I know that we also said we still want to go back, because I feel like there's a lot of arguments for remaining an elected position, and there was a lot of arguments for appointed position, and I know the minutes kind of churned that up a few times, but we didn't come to any conclusion, and I didn't know if we wanted to conclude or if it's still too early on that.
No, I think
We only had Diane in, and was she in here officially or for something else, and then she
Yeah,
spoke?
it was something else.
she came in for something else, not for this.
Yeah, we
She was
probably,
in for town meeting, I think. She
Yes,
was
you're
about
right,
the
you're
way
right,
that town
yeah.
meeting is
Should we
prepared.
have her come in again?
I would say have her come in.
yeah, I
Okay.
think we definitely ought to talk to her, yeah.
Okay,
But,
kick that one down the road again.
Can I ask a general question?
Of course.
Are there other contract positions that you're envisioning? Like right now, I think we have four employees under contract. Police chief, fire chief, town administrator, and the library director. Those are the four that I know of. Are there at one point, the chief financial officer was a contract position. I'm just asking if there's other, I think you want to differentiate on hiring and firing authority on those positions, if they're under a contract.
So explain that some more.
So, contracts typically have a termination clause where someone, if they're not performing, there's a way of, like, if we decided to dismiss the town administrator, there's, 6 months of payout or something, right? I don't know that you want a town manager being able to sign contracts that commit the town to these type of things without a board approval, right?
Okay.
So, and those are the only four contracts I know about at the moment, but we've been back and forth on whether, in different times where the finance people are contract or not. So I'm just saying, as you're going through this, if you're moving positions around, keep that in mind.
So it's police chief, fire chief, library, and TA?
Yeah, those are the ones I believe are contract. You can, if you go through the employment grid, there's a little star next to the ones that are contract.
If we were to say that in the charter, let's say the language said something like town manager is responsible for following HR policy, does that not kind of
There's
cover
no HR
it?
policy on contracts.
Is that something that should be?
I think it gets a little more complicated. I think contracts just get more complicated, that's all.
Okay.
Is
Maybe
the-
it might fall under procurement or something, I don't know, yeah, okay.
Is the main concern around the contracts just the severance pay?
I would be concerned that, well, if you're worried about, a town administrator hiring his brother for something that's not set up for it, right, which they typically do as a strong, someone else could come in and dismiss them at a certain point in time, but if
Yeah,
there's
nice payout.
there's a financial implication for doing that, then you'd like to be able to protect yourself from that.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, employment contracts, something.
These are, so the other ones are implied in our notes, but I don't think we've ever really said for absolute certainty that we would say, yes, school and light and water departments should remain exempt. There's a couple of those exemptions that we sort of consistently note in our minutes, but we haven't, I guess, all sort of sat there and said, okay, yeah, we want to make it clear that we are exempting the school department and the light and water department from direct oversight by the town manager as well. I mean, just, it sounds obvious to say it like that, but just wanted to make sure that was captured. Okay.
To say that they don't, I mean, I think the school, it's not like we give that or take that away. It's like, it is what it is. But again, from my standpoint, some of this is once you have a charter, now somebody could read this and say, this is how the government works, and that's an important piece to understand. The school department's doesn't report into everything else, so
Okay.
I think it's important to spell it out.
Some of the other smaller points.
Well, do you want to, but, I mean, we talked about town clerk quickly, and we're gonna have her back in. Do you want to go down this list of the specific proposals down here? Town moderator, assessors, the ones you have on page 2, or whatever it is here?
Yeah, so if the town clerk one is still maybe TBD.
Yeah.
The town moderator, I think these were implied that we agreed on them. We just, we wanted to clarify the 3-year term, and we want to say that a deputy moderator is deemed inefficient, and we do not. Our minutes lean towards no deputy moderator. But
He doesn't agree with
I don't ever recall a discussion of the advantages of having a deputy and the disadvantages of having a deputy. I know of no disadvantages, and I think I know of advantages. So I'd love to have that discussion. It's not a big deal, and I would just love to have that discussion someday, why we would not have a deputy town moderator.
I think we have talked about some of this, but Tim, you want to address it?
Yeah, no, I don't have an objection to making it formalized in any way. I mean, realistically, well, taking this charter process out to next spring's town meeting, I'll have to either appoint a deputy moderator or put someone up before town meeting to be elected moderator, because I'll have to recuse myself from this article. You know, it would just make sense to do that.
Well,
in the past, we've kind of elected people on the spot to serve as the deputy moderator in the cafeteria when we had overflow, or we've done it kind of on a as needed basis. I have no objection to saying that this is I think the body still has to elect them, so I could say Joe Blow will be the moderator, but the town meeting's going to have to say yay or nay. I mean, generally it's yay. I mean, they're not going to.
As opposed to having a permanent deputy position.
I suppose.
But what's the drawback to having a permanent designated deputy moderator? Seems like they would only be moderators.
Except they never have anything to do. In most cases, they never do anything. That's the problem, right?
Well,
Yeah, I think I've only.
No, I know, but would you, be like.
But if to have someone trained and ready to stand up and serve in the role in a moment when the moderator couldn't be there or something, wasn't, not feeling well, to have somebody teed up to stand in as part of their job, that seems to be efficient and effective to me. At little
I'm
cost.
just not sure the train part is the part that I'm not sure that we'd have. You'd have somebody, but they may not have ever done it before.
Oh,
They
sure,
still-
but we
Right.
would take the opportunity to get them trained.
Yeah, no, I mean, we could, I don't have any objection to naming anybody. I think we've used the deputy moderator in the main room once in the 20 years I've been moderator. Fred Faulkner filled in one
Yeah.
time, but, I don't have any objection to it. I guess I'll end it there.
Who would appoint him?
Well,
Who appoints you? How do you get,
I get elected
you get elected?
every 3 years. Has to be an
So we'd
election.
have
it has,
elect-
state law, it has to be elected. right?
We're trying to get rid of elections. Why are we adding elections?
So I think that I seem to recall the Collins Centre saying that if there was a deputy moderator, that it would be appointed by the moderator, but maybe I'm misrecollecting that.
I think that's the case.
Well, that
If
is
you're
the
gonna
case.
have
Okay. They don't have to go through the election process. They're
No,
just
right.
sort of
That would be great.
If they're available.
tapped to do it.
Sure.
Seems
And
to me that would-
are there any disadvantages apart from maybe
Oh,
having
no. There's no-
redundancy?
It's,
You just have to find somebody, because you have to have something, this is something you have to do, right? Yeah.
right.
I'm with Tim. I don't see a reason to have that, formalize that position. In the few instances we've ever needed one, we did it on the spot.
Right.
And the town meeting elected them right there and we moved on.
Yeah,
So
yeah, well, no, it's gonna be a sticking point. I have no objection. I mean, we could, I'll name someone,
yeah.
or I guess I wouldn't
I
have
don't
to until the
object.
charter went in, but
I just don't see a good sufficient reason to formalize a position.
there's not sometimes there's an overflow, so that is an opportunity to
There's other
employ.
cases if you'd have to recuse yourself, but
Yes.
it hasn't happened very often, though,
Right,
right? It
right.
hasn't happened.
Yeah, but it
But I
will.
know,
will for
that's
this.
it, Groton does have a deputy. They did have one.
Because you will have to recuse yourself when we do this.
Yes, yeah, I will.
Where do we fall?
I have no problem formalizing and letting them make the appointment.
Okay, just do it, put it in there. Yep, and then leave it open some of the time, and you just fill it in when you need it.
Yeah.
These are all just recommendations, right?
Yeah.
These are
Yeah,
all
yeah.
just recommendations.
But still, you want to do it with
Yeah,
thought and
yeah.
what you think.
Yep.
So, I mean, in a perfect world, I guess there'd be somebody coming up saying, I want to, I got my eye on that, I've got some background that makes sense, and so.
Yeah, might
Right.
not be
They
bad.
start learning, following you around and learning what you're doing and so on, but.
Tim, do you think there's ever a sort of argument that maybe it might help with a bit of a succession planning as well? Like there could be,
That's what I mean.
somebody who, like if you ever don't want to do it again.
It didn't have much of a succession plan when.
No, I know, but you
Charlie,
happen to be there. You happen to be there to pick it up, and you
It's sort
had,
of
That's
an
right.
you had the right
apprenticeship.
background to do it.
Right.
If you think of it as an
You can't do
apprenticeship
succession
versus.
planning on an elected position.
No, yeah, that's right too.
No, but if someone was learning the
You
ropes,
train
maybe
the
it's
guy for 40 years and I
Standard.
pop up and get elected, so.
not much.
Yeah, well, it occurs to me from the candidates night.
It's not.
There's a candidate for
But
every
it's
trustee
legally.
Yeah.
who was the former moderator in Bolton.
Oh, is that
So I
right?
think I'll reach out to him.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Since, yeah.
Pipeline,
All right.
pipeline planning.
Oh, yeah.
Still have to talk about the meeting.
Yeah, we gotta,
Yeah.
Okay.
We can bump this to.
Sorry.
I'll
Well,
defer to you.
no,
on this,
we have to do
Betsy,
some,
what
we have to
wanna
talk about
do.
the public forum some. That's okay, we don't have to be out of here at 8 o'clock on the dot either. Sorry, folks, but we don't. Yeah, right.
I'm running on fumes. Yeah.
All right, so do we make a
Yeah, you-
decision on this then? We're gonna say yes to the deputy?
Ended at noon.
I'm in
Aye.
favor.
Charlotte? We have a decision then? We say yes to the deputy?
Yes to the deputy,
Okay.
formalized deputy moderator.
Okay.
Yeah.
Time now, Tim.
That's what they could.
All right, so we're gonna have to put some of these other
Deputy.
ones off because we gotta talk about the public forum. You gotta give you some time on the public forum. All right, let's jump to that, and we're gonna have to,
Madam Chairman,
yes, sir.
we need to have a meeting where we sit and deal with all of this stuff.
Right.
Not the last 15 minutes of a 2-hour meeting. We need to honestly sit down
Yep.
and talk about just this.
I agree.
Okay.
Just that we also need to have people come in and talk to us, and I got more coming in next time, because we have to do that too, so I hear you.
Well,
Or we have a longer meeting, or we have more meetings, I don't, I mean, that's the thing.
it just seems to me that we do a lot of talking, which we need to do with
Right?
people.
Yep,
But when it comes down to actually trying to make
I
some kind of
agree.
recommendation,
I agree,
we don't have time.
right. So, what do you recommend? If we have more meetings, it would have to be probably not on a Monday.
What about that Thursday meeting that we have coming up? Isn't there one on
We already-
Thursday?
we already-
Tuesday.
We do
Well, there
have
was a
one Thursday
random one.
meeting.
When is
have
the Thursday?
people
A
in
longer
for the
meeting?
first hour.
Yeah, well, that
And
was,
the
that was,
second hour-
that was supposed to be what it was, and it just
I
went
know,
on, but
but-
I know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Chop them up.
Okay.
When is the Thursday meeting? I don't think I have that on my calendar.
Did we already do it? I don't remember now.
No,
I know we did
thought-
schedule one on a
God,
Thursday.
I want to say like October.
There is one Thursday meeting.
9th,
Did we have it?
maybe.
Or did we
It
already
was in
do
one
it?
of the
I don't
emails that you
remember.
sent out.
Yeah, I
Betsy. feel
remember,
like
I
there was
remember doing it, I just don't remember.
One random.
If it already
Thursday.
happened or whether that's in the future.
I feel like it's October 9th. Is that right? Oh, please don't say whether they're. Oh, yeah, Thursday, October 9th. It says on the email at least.
Okay, that's it then.
The way that email was structured, there were two lists of meetings, and then there was one in between. I circled the one in between because I don't think I saw it the first time.
Okay,
Thursday, October 9th, yeah.
all right. Okay. All right, maybe you can put that even in the minutes so we have it, just so we know we have it.
Yeah.
Okay, so, quickly. Public forum.
I can't type and talk at the same time.
You guys all got the that
Mm-hmm.
spreadsheet, right? Yeah. That spreadsheet.
So Kevin and I had the opportunity to brainstorm with Annalise, who is the Yes for One. Charlotte introduced us but couldn't attend because she was traveling, about the best way to drum up publicity for this. And there's a lot of other meetings coming up in October. So we kind of nailed, I forget now the dates, between like the 12th and the 24th, somewhere in that window for town meeting, but after the town meeting report book goes out, because that's one of the things that I wanted to ask, if we could get like an info page or a public service announcement about the public forum in there. I don't know if
In
it's
the-
appropriate.
In the booklet?
Yeah, is that appropriate?
I'm not sure. It kind of the
Is that-
board's call on that, but
Select board.
I don't know what the timing is on the
There's a special town newsletter which is going out, which I think might be
warrant
there
booklet. For
So we had the
open.
newsletter, the public forum, the Oktoberfest event, just different ways to be visible besides flyers. Because when you see charter committee, honestly, you're like, ew, what's that?
Yeah.
It's not like something interesting or exciting. So the more eyes we can get on it, the better. So those were some of the recommendations. I tried to outline them in that document. I'd like to take advantage of that, but obviously nailing the date down is kind of the starting point for everything. So I don't know what people think about dates. And then are there people we want to invite, like the select board? Did you intend to have the Collins Center present for that, or is it just us? And then who else do we have to confirm availability with?
Yeah, it's just a matter who you want to have as speakers. I think certainly some of the select board members ought to be there. I would also, my 2 cents would be in terms of the publicity for this thing. I don't know how many people are actually going to want to come, and that's okay. But I think the publicity, the good news about the publicity is just letting people know there is a charter committee and what are we
Yes.
doing. So the publicity, just explaining, giving a high level, this is what's going on. So at
Exactly.
least they're aware of that.
Right. So
They
they
come to
can't
the
say-
meeting, like, whatever, some people are going to come. If they're really interested, they're watching these meetings already. So my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, we'll just say put it in the newsletter, the town newsletter. I don't know that we need to run postcards.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
Yeah, well,
Much.
there's no budget there either.
Yeah.
That's why we're like,
Yeah.
oh, if we can sneak it in the
Funding
town
that.
meeting book, that's like free postage.
Yeah.
If we,
The newsletter and
the newsletter wouldn't come out until later in October. I think, for instance, like the September 30th deadline, I think, is for the special town newsletter, which is going to be published before the town meeting. But the usual town newsletter deadline, if we met that in October, it wouldn't come out till November.
So we have to get it in. So we missed the newsletter, is what you're saying.
If we put out something, I think we filled out that, it's an online form that you send it in. If we just put that out, I'm sure it would probably still get in for October at this point. It's the 15th today, so I think, right, it'll still get in.
Mark is saying yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so the online newsletter, nobody wants to go to Oktoberfest and have a table for the charter committee.
I mean, I'll be there.
You can say, we have a
Don't know
little
what to
T-shirt, I'm on the charter
envision.
committee, ask me what the charter committee is.
Yeah, just follow
That's
me
what we're
around.
gonna do.
I mean, you could do that if somebody wants to do it. I mean, that's the whole thing is.
Well, I mean, if you're not concerned about attendance and more just awareness, that's two different.
I mean, that's me, but I'm just
Approaches.
one person here, so I don't know what everybody else feels. I just.
With the
I
CAP
don't-
forum, we've got a
Awareness
lot
is good enough for me.
of,
Yeah.
with the CAP
Because we're gonna
forum,
get
just the
people who are
Facebook.
not, so.
Yeah, the Facebook groups seem to reach a lot
Yes,
of people.
that's what
So I
Annalise
think,
said, is
yeah, that's why we got a lot
Facebook.
of like
The moms.
clicks, likes. Yeah, exactly. There's all the sort of adjacent groups in town, even like the Conservation Trails group. I mean, there's a bunch
Yes,
of them.
so I'm not a Facebook, I have no Facebook account,
Terrible
so
at it, but-
someone else would have to
click something.
take that on.
I can do that.
So these were the things that she said were most effective,
Mhm.
were the Facebook pages and events, the postcard mailer, digital signage, library, and the center next door, and then just good old-fashioned flyers that we can get up. So that part's easy.
The town newsletter, we also had the opportunity to do it on the go thing too, right, with Karen?
But she
Again,
said
it's just a
not-
matter of somebody having the time and effort to do it.
But also, she said not prior to town meeting,
Okay.
just because everything now
Because everything is going
like
on town meeting,
all
yeah.
gearing up.
Gotcha.
for
But actually, that would be better
That's
to
actually
do it
better.
after, because then you can have some public
Right.
input
Yeah.
to frame the discussion
Yeah.
for
Yeah,
that.
that's okay too, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna skip the town
That's
meetings,
good.
right?
Yeah, that's what I mean, yeah, so that's good, right? Just the information, just,
Yeah, the draft flyer.
Mhm.
So the idea was, what kind of town government do you want for Littleton is
Mhm.
kind of as opposed to leading with charter committee,
Yep.
which everyone goes.
Except with the light refreshments.
Well, Charlotte's like, we have to have food.
You want people to show up?
But that's the draft of the flyer.
Mhm.
I don't know if we need approval to send it out or whatever.
well, I mean,
but-
finalize it and then send it out, just see if anybody sees something and then we'll go.
Okay, so I need a date to finalize
Yeah,
it.
so you gotta find out, I mean, well, yeah, so that comes down to people, I guess, for the most part, right? That's gonna be tough to do. You gotta find out the people you wanna invite and then do a doodle or something. I don't know how you
I was
find out
So-
everyone who's available.
I made a note of some dates, that's why I kind of leaned, I had the
Okay.
14th to the 23rd.
Yeah,
Somewhere in that range. Evening, I'm assuming,
yeah.
yeah. Not a Monday, not a Friday.
Is there a reason not a Monday, given that we already?
The select board meet the other night that we don't meet.
So they're going to be meeting on the 20th?
Yes.
But yes.
Yes, okay.
That limits my participation to the 14th or the 15th.
Is one of those the long weekend?
That's a
For
Tuesday
some
and a
people.
Wednesday.
13th is the holiday, I think, right?
Okay. All right, the Monday. So you're good, Kyle, when? 14th, 15th? Or no?
14th, 15th, because I'm going out of town on the 16th.
Those are fine with me.
Yep.
Excuse me, so sorry.
Not that I have to be there, I just.
Oh, come on now. You can have the T-shirt. Ask me about the charter committee.
I could only do
I'll
the
get that printed for me.
14th.
I'll be sure to wear it.
Between the 14th and the 15th, I could do the 14th.
Yeah.
Any other
Shoot for
no's?
14th?
Sure. Tuesday, the 14th,
Yeah.
6 o'clock? 7?
I'm going out in town that
You have to check the
Day.
calendar, yeah.
Going once? Going twice?
Or should we have a
Like seven?
backup in case there is something in town planned?
We could do the 15th, the backup. I don't have anything.
Yep.
I've got October test
14th?
on the 4th, Shaker Lane tours on the 21st.
As far as we know, that's what we're trying for.
I can't do the 15th, but yeah.
Okay. Let's hope for the 14th, we can get the other people that we need, so, somebody from the select board, it doesn't have to be,
I'll be there.
okay, Mark will be there, and we'll see who else.
If you give me the flyer, I'll make sure it's announced at our meeting on Monday.
There you
Oh, beautiful.
Great.
So we'll do that, and then Charlotte, URL and registration.
You gotta find a place though, right? That's the other thing, you gotta make sure there's a
Yes,
room available on
that's
the
right.
14th. That's,
I've gotta-
that'll be the next big thing, right?
So I
Yeah.
was wondering if we need a backup date, just because if we can't do it at the Shattuck Center and we can't do it at the library and we can't do it, like then.
Should we just do the
I don't know.
15th?
I have a hard time thinking you're gonna, but you never know, I guess.
Mm.
Yeah.
We have the police room that night, so.
You have what?
no.
Oh, the police room that night?
Yeah.
I would guess you could get the Shattuck Center. I mean, there's not many evening events over there, so if
Okay.
there's not a Shaker Lane event, then I would guess that it's available.
Okay.
But then you won't be able to come to the meeting. What time is your meeting?
6:30.
Oh, we'll be done by 6:30. No. I'm coming 6:30. Okay.
And that then gives us 4 weeks, right, between.
Yes, and you and Kevin had drafted an agenda and some of the content, and, you guys are gonna have speaking roles. So we'll have time for a dry run and debate them. But at the moment, all I've got there is learn what a town charter does, hear progress to date, research, observations, and emerging themes, share your ideas, suggestions, concerns, questions.
Yep.
I think that's.
Yep.
That's all I got. Okay?
Yep.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thanks for doing that. I really appreciate you all driving that one through, because I never would have gotten done, so,
Well,
thank you very much.
we don't have a room yet, but
That's all.
we have a date. Thank you.
The Shattuck Center, the room might be too big for,
They can subdivide.
Subdivide.
It's still big when they
They
divide
have a
it.
sustainability form over there.
Yeah, it was nice. It was really.
How many people did you get?
We probably ended up having, what, 20 people?
Yeah, that's
including some of us, like.
Well, as I said, there's 9 of us.
I was gonna say,
so-
well, 9 of us show
I think
up,
there were
yeah.
probably closer to 40 people there. I mean, there were a fair number of tables.
Yeah.
Yeah, that should be fun.
And they were just so wonderful about helping them all set up and everything. It's just really easy. And a nice space.
Okay.
Excellent.
All right, do you need anything else from us to move forward at
No,
this point?
thank
All right, thank you. All right, minutes real quick. Somebody want to make a motion to approve minutes from August 18th?
Move that the August 18th minutes be approved.
Second.
All those in, discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, pass.
The ayes have it.
Okay. Another motion?
Move that we adjourn.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All those in favor? All right, thanks, buddy, thank you.
Thank you.